there, Vault Dwellers. Follow us as we take a topic from the Fallout universe and discuss it in a group of diverse individuals. We are the Fallout Roundtable. Join us, the conversation has already started.
Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Fallout Roundtable episode Rewind. Is what we're calling it, I guess.
Yeah, something like that.
I think we finally settled on that. This
Vault
is
Talk's taken, so
sounds good. This I'm Sassylady, and this is Sulior, and we are going to go over episode 4 of the Fallout TV show on Prime. But first, let's go over the important things. So you can find us on Twitter at FalloutRTB. Send me an email, falloutrtb@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube. Just search for Fallout Roundtable, and pretty much anywhere else you can find us. We do stream the regular show live on Thursday nights on Twitch and Kick, and you can find us there. Just search us up and just give us some feedback and let us know what you think. Give us your thoughts, your comments. Are we wrong? Are we right? Are we close? Are we not? Do you have any other theories? Just so we'd like to hear from you and let us know what you think. And if you want to be on the show and talk about some of your own topics, let us know that too, and we'll get you on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You ready
I'm
for
usually
episode?
there in the chat, so at least.
So what about episode 4?
Ooh, yeah, it was a big one.
I mean, it was a short one, but it was a big one, right?
It was a short one, yeah.
Seemed short.
I was surprised at how short it was rewatching it, but it was definitely one that had stood out in my mind from the first time I watched it, because there's a lot there in that short amount of time.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, there was just a lot to unpack in this. Maybe that's why it was shorter, because they jammed so much information in here, so much stuff for you to think about, that maybe like our little brains were going to melt or something if they gave us too much. I don't know. But
well, and especially if you do know a little bit about,
lore.
Ghouls and about the lore itself, like the stuff that they gave, it's like, okay, that's stuff that we've all kind of speculated on and see, and we'll get into this, but they still don't give you a straight up answer with anything.
We still have questions.
They give you a lot of things like, oh, okay, so that's what that is. But if you think about it, it's like, well, maybe not.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely get.
Yeah, we still have a lot of questions, and it's funny because like as I was leaving work last night, my security guard that I talked to about gaming and stuff, he actually asked me. He's like, "Okay, so how is this dude still alive after 200 years? Because he's never really played Fallout, so he doesn't know about ghouls and stuff." So I'm like, "Because he's a ghoul," and he's like, "What does that mean?" So I'm explaining to him, and then I'm like, well, some ghouls were able to retain their minds and some weren't, so they go feral, and I don't know what episodes he's on. I'm assuming he's like still in the beginning episodes. So
yeah, because I mean, you do see the ghoul even at the end of the first episode,
right.
And it's like, wait, if this is the same guy, how is he still alive?
Right. It's like 219 years later, how is this guy still walking around? And it's so that was kind of interesting to like have that conversation with somebody who's not played Fallout yet.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool. So I love that we're getting out, we're getting out there to people that have not, that aren't familiar with the franchise and like how it's hitting them. And I know like certain things will probably be explained later on, but he's like, hey, tell me. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah. I've had friends call or text me like, hey, I know you like Fallout. I'm watching the show.
Yeah.
What is this? And, yeah.
And I think like if you go to the Prime page and you go under the Fallout, they have so many, like they talk about the characters, they talk about how like the technology works, how the chems work, all the different little things that like you wouldn't understand, like stim pack. What is this stim pack? And why? How did it like bring this dog back to life? And it explains like what the stim packs do. And so I thought that was kind of cool because it just gives you like a little quick and dirty explanation as to what these things do in the world of Fallout. we all wish we had Stimpaks now, but it's not a thing yet. This is 2077. Give it time. They'll come maybe.
Hopefully medicine will get there.
Yeah, maybe. If Big Pharma has anything to say about it, probably not.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
because what's the fun in like somebody being able to heal themselves?
And even if they can, they're gonna charge you like
a
more than
lot
your
of
house.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be like you can just walk up to a vending machine and be like, I need that. So we start out episode 4 with Let's Go Sunnin', one of my favorite songs. It's such a fun, happy song. Let's go sunnin'. And it's just such a cool thing. And we see the ghoul and Lucy because remember, he kidnaps her basically, puts a little rope on her and makes her his little prisoner. And they're walking through the wasteland. And he's doing more coughing. So we're getting the idea that he really needed this drug that she just destroyed all of his supply of. And it's really starting to affect him, but he can't do anything about it. And they are passing a building and they hear somebody yelling inside.
Yeah, you hear Roger.
Yeah. My name is Roger. My name is Roger. But you hear him like yelling his name, but you also hear him making some weird noises.
Barrel noises, yeah.
They go inside and check it out, and it's another ghoul. And he seems like he's in pain, and it turns out he's turning. He's going from regular ghoul to feral, and he's fighting it because he keeps saying, "My name is Roger." And I guess this seems to be a way to try and preserve your sanity is you just keep stating, your name and things.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that when we talked to Zach Finfrock. Because that was one of the things that he came up with. And the fact that they are including this in the show is really interesting.
Yeah.
It is a way to remember, like, who am I? Who am I? Okay.
Who am I? Yeah. Who am I?
Roger.
Who am I? Stay true to yourself. Be you, whatever. So he keeps repeating his name. And it seems that he and the ghoul know each other. And it's like, oh, hey, and the ghoul is like, well, how are you doing? And how do you feel? Because everybody knows, looks at maybe Lucy because she's not real familiar with the ghoul world, but we all know he's turning feral. We can see it happening. And the ghoul's talking to him, and Roger says, well, it's really hard out there. It's really hard out here. And, the smoothies can be so unkind. And he's like, I see that you have a smoothie of your own. And he even says, she might want to leave. This is not pretty. Because he knows this is inevitable.
He knows what's happening.
Yeah, he knows what's happening. He asked the ghoul, is like, do you have a vial you can spare? I'm good for it. I just need a puff. I just need a puff to get me through. So this is it reinforcing that whatever this drug is that the ghoul kept huffing, this keeps them from going feral. And so Roger's asking, do you have this? I just need a little bit. And of course, we already know the ghoul supply got smashed.
Sorry,
he's
fresh
like,
out.
No, I'm all out. And he looks at Lucy, this meaningful look,
This
like,
is
I'm
what you
out.
did.
And she's looking at him like, oh crap. Like, now I get it. Why it's so important.
Why he was so mad.
Right. Because now she's like, oh, is he gonna go feral on me? Because he doesn't have and granted, she didn't know. It's not like he said, don't touch the bag, She had no idea. She was fighting for her life. It was just a very unfortunate circumstance that happened.
I'm sorry. Was I just supposed to let myself get eaten?
If he had, he was fine with that. he was fine with that. Yeah, yes. If it came down to that, yes, you should have gotten eaten. So Roger talks about it. He says, well, I've lasted 28 years, and he brings up the fact, he's like, well, how long have you been out here? You've been out here a long time. And the ghoul says, yep, a long time. And he says, well, that's a lot of vials. And the ghoul says, well, I've always known how to make money.
Yeah.
I've always been good at making money. I guess it's worse. I've always been good at making money. So we know
that is an interesting comment, though, because that kind of brings up the question whether Roger is actually a pre-war ghoul or if he took some because I just did an episode on this for Tapes from the Wastes.
I wondered that too.
Yeah, but so is the 28 years from when he first started turning feral,
Yes, I
or
believe so
yeah.
because he
I mean,
said it's
yeah,
been 28 years since I turned.
I think so too, but that
So I don't
did kind of
think
bring
he's
that thought to mind.
pre-war
No.
because he would have been,
So
I mean, whatever age he was, still wouldn't have been pre-war plus the 28
so
years.
I mean it so he lasted almost 200 years before he started turning. But so it's like
Because he wouldn't have been like 200 years and then turned. So
yeah, so I mean
he has to be post-war.
post-war ghouls aren't really common. We do know of some. I mean, Hancock's one of them, but yeah,
I guess if you're exposed to enough radiation, it could happen. Because he even says, I mean, this is later in the episode, but he even, the ghoul tells Lucy when she says, "What are you?" He says,
I'm
"I'm
you.
you. You're
Just
just
giving it
not
some
there
time.
yet."
Yeah,
So, I mean, it seems like if you're exposed to enough radiation, you will ghoulify or die. Because isn't that the way it was during the war? People who were exposed
yeah.
to radiation due to the bomb died or ghoulified.
Or gain mutations if this is 76.
Yeah, true. Or both. So,
Grow
you
an extra
know,
arm.
so he turned 28 years ago. So he's kind of reminiscing. And so the ghoul distracts him. He starts going through cabinets and he's like,
They're
"So do
talking about
you,"
food.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's like, "You remember what food tastes like?" Because I guess they don't eat anymore or they don't eat, I don't know, food. I guess they do
They
eat,
can. They
but
do
they don't
eat.
taste, maybe. I don't know.
Because I mean, the ghoul after. Well, I mean, this getting a little head. He starts chowing down on Roger afterward.
Right. So I guess they have to eat, but now it's more like a zombie-esque kind of eating,
Yeah.
like like a cannibal kind of thing. But yeah, that's but they start talking about, do you remember what food tastes like? And Roger's like, "Oh, Blamco mac and cheese."
Yep.
And the ghoul's like, "Mom's homemade apple pie and ice cream." And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's great." And Roger starts to tell a story about his mom. And the ghoul
Hmm.
puts him out of his misery. And Lucy's like, "Oh my God, why did you do that?
He was
He was
suffering.
sick.
He
We
needed
could have
help.
helped
And
him."
yeah, there's no helping that.
And the ghoul knew that. He was like,
Yeah.
it was, in his mind, he was doing the guy a favor because it was better to put him out of his misery, not make him go through that, not make him go
Yeah.
feral, not have to kill him after he was feral, but better to take care of it now and not make the guy go through any more of that suffering because it
Mhm.
looked like it was painful to go feral. It didn't look
Yeah.
like he was enjoying it. And
Yeah.
she's just like, "But we could have helped him." But the ghoul knew there's nothing that could be done at this point.
Yeah, he just his whole thing is like, yeah, you're so naive. You need to
Right.
lose that,
He's like, "You
and
don't
I'm gonna
know
help. I'm
anything."
gonna get you there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And so, you know, and then he starts turning around and, he's taking out like the last good tooth that Roger has, and he's, taking any other valuables off the body. And she's like, "I
Mhm.
know life is hard, but you don't have to resort to this." And he's looking at her like, "You don't know anything," and just goes
Like
back
we
to
had
his
a
work.
famine in 77, which I'm guessing is 2277, and like
Uh-huh.
apparently that's according to her, that's how her mom died.
Right. My mom
Which we
died,
know
but my
isn't
and my
true later
dad
on, but
lost so much weight, but he would never resort to this.
and the ghoul is like, yeah, right.
And he says, "What did you say your name was?" "Lucy
And she said,
McLean." And
and he's
he's
like,
like,
and
"McLean."
he recognizes the name McLean. Yeah.
And then he says, "It ain't all canned peaches and marmalade up here, sweetheart. Sometimes a fella's got to eat a fella." And then he even goes on to say, "I'll bet your dad was first in line at the barbecue." Because he was, what was it?
Yeah.
There's those who said what happened, and then there's what really happened. I'll
Yeah.
bet you your dad was first in line at the barbecue with an apron with a picture of a man's ass on or something like that.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, why am I doing all the work?
First in
Ass
line at
jerky
the
don't make
cookout with a bib
itself.
with a drawing of your neighbor's ass on it. That's what it was. And then, so she keeps, how do you live like this? Why do you keep going? And he finally turns around. He says, well, one good question deserves another. Why am I doing all the work?
Ass jerky don't make
That ass
itself.
jerky doesn't make itself. And he hands her a knife and she looks like she's gonna,
It's funny because what was it, that South by Southwest event? They sold ass jerky.
They sold ass jerky.
And we're all like, what the hell is ass jerky?
Still don't know what it was, I don't think. I mean, I'm assuming it was just any kind of jerky, but
yeah.
I don't really know what ass jerky is. But she jumps in. I mean, the girl can cut a guy's head off. I'm assuming she has no problem with cutting off flesh of a dead person.
Oh, no.
I mean, go for it. So she does what she's expected to do, but he's not, like, he knows things. We know he knows things, but he's not going to divulge to her. And she obviously knows nothing. Like, she's been told one story and he knows that she's not been told the truth.
There's definitely some fabrication.
Yeah, he knows that she does not know the truth about, obviously, her father, probably about her mother. I don't know what he knows about her mother, if he does know anything about her mother, but he knows plenty about her dad, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know if those two ever cross paths. I mean, we know later on that, I mean, we're jumping ahead here again, spoilers.
Yeah, don't.
That he knows Hank.
Yeah.
But
it's funny though, because, all right, so let's just say, this is 200 years later. The guy's got a crystal clear memory. Which somehow my memory's not that good. I don't know if it'll be like that 200 years.
Names kind of, you lose names if you're not around the person.
But I guess, like, considering what the man has been through when we get to that point, probably, yes, certain things are going to stick in your head. But, how do you just assume that there's only one McClane on the planet? I mean, maybe there is.
Yeah, because it's not
especially associated with a vault. I mean, he might just be putting one and one together because he knows that there's one McClane that would be associated with a vault, and he's just making the assumption that this is that McClane, and it's the right assumption. And it's just, I guess, he's just really good at deducing. He's really good at deducing things, and he hits the nail on the head. But it's like, well, in theory, there could be other McClanes. But I guess not that just crawled out of a vault. So I guess he's right.
Well, and he does know her vault number because it's on her back.
Well, true. She wears it proudly.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he knows which vault
it was.
The McClane he knew went into, and I don't know if he, and who knows if it's she never said who her dad was.
No, yeah, she never named him.
He doesn't necessarily know that it's the same guy, but like I said, he's deducing, and he just happens to be deducing correctly. So good for him. So now we go back to Vault 33, and they're holding elections for their new overseer. And Reg and Woody, the two that were on the board, they've been putting up their posters and they're talking to each other about, oh, congratulations on your campaign. I see it's going really well, And they're talking about one of the prisoners. And they had been questioning him, apparently, but they had to tranquilize him for his own safety. His own safety. And
he wasn't very happy with them.
He was not. And didn't seem like he was going to cough up any information. He was trying to fight his bindings or whatever, however they had him secured to his chair or whatever he was trying to fight. And they were like, sir, you're going to hurt yourself. We better tranquilize him again for his own safety. And then we cut to Betty. And Betty finds Norm, who had been looking at a picture of his dad on his Pit Boy. I guess he's missing dad. And she brings him pie. And she talks about how he's the last McClane in the vault now with his sister missing. And that his voice carries weight and upsets people. Because remember, we last saw that he had talked about
killing the Raiders. Yeah.
Yes, doing to the Raiders what they were going to do to us. And she's like, well, your voice carries weight. So she doesn't want him planting seeds in people's minds that shouldn't be there.
Which,
And
yeah, you kind of get the sense, okay, she knows what's going on.
mhm.
If she's wanting him to quote unquote tread lightly.
Yes, is what she says. You need to tread lightly. She makes a comment that's really interesting. She says that when little boys get angry, they pee on the walls. But when clever boys like Norm get angry, it's best not to see where that leads and that he should tread lightly.
Yeah, so she knows how smart he is.
Mm-hmm. And she knows that
And
he's angry.
and she knows that I mean maybe she might know that he's been snooping around too.
I think she knows everything. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure that those vaults are wired for sound and video and everything else. So she knows what he's been up to, and she's trying to like warn him to just stop
Yeah.
without
'Cause, I
coming out
mean,
and saying it.
we know from Wilsig that somebody is keeping an eye on them
Yes.
somehow.
Oh yeah, because Wilzig knows
Yeah,
everything
he knew
about this vault.
everything.
He
So
knows
you have
everything.
to wonder if Betty somehow has the same access.
Well, sure.
So
And I mean, she's probably getting all her information from 31. And
right.
31 obviously has eyes and ears, I'm sure. And so, I mean, if 31 has eyes and ears, then they're probably like, yo, Betty, your boy's over here looking around at 32, you know?
Right.
So she knows what's going on. If she doesn't know on her own, I mean, their little story of, oh, we were planting potatoes was kind of lame.
Yeah.
And you knew that she was like, okay, we'll go clean up or whatever she said.
Yeah,
That
we
she
need
was
to get
kind of
you
like,
out of the way. We need to keep you occupied with something else.
right. I mean, like she wasn't really buying it, but
Okay.
what was she going to do? Make a big deal out of it right there? You know, just, I think maybe she just wanted to see what they would say.
Yeah.
Are you going to tell
just
me the
kinda
truth
get
or are
his
you going to like
reaction.
lie to me?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they lied to her. So, like, now she knows I got to keep an eye on this. And so now we're back to Lucy and the ghoul.
Yeah, that was one of those scenes where it doesn't seem like it's a whole lot until you start thinking
No.
about it. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
'Cause
it was a
wasn't very
really
long.
quick scene and it was really, in a way, you might think it's a throwaway scene, but there was a lot of meaning there.
Yeah.
Like it was like, you know, we know that Norm, you know, like he's being warned and he's being watched and he's basically being told to back off. So we
Yeah.
go back to Lucy and the ghoul, and they're in the wasteland. And they come to some water. So he refills his canteen, and Lucy's Geiger counter's going off.
Yeah,
But
it's going
she's
nuts.
had no water. So she's desperate at this point. And she's just like, I don't even care anymore. And she drops down to her knees and she just starts drinking water from it because she is just, you know, I'm just dying.
And this is where we get that line from the trailer where he's like, ain't much stays clean up here, Vaulty.
Yeah. And he asked her how that golden rule is slipping for her. And so that's when she says, what are you?
Yeah.
And he says, I'm you. Just give it time. So he starts coughing. He has a coughing fit where it's like basically uncontrollable. And he's just like he can't manage the coughing this time. And you wonder if it's going to stop. Well, she takes advantage of this distraction and she takes off booking it. She starts running. But she finds out that she thinks she's home free, but then she comes to the edge of Shady Sands where it's just nothing but a crater and she's got nowhere to run. She's stuck. And of course, he catches up to her. And being the cowboy that he is, he lassos her and drags her back, ass over tea kettle, basically. And, you know, he gets her back. And so they have a scuffle and she bites off his finger. And he says, there you are, you little killer. Because he's been wanting to see her true nature now that she's out of the vault.
Let's get that viciousness out of you a little bit.
So then he cuts her finger off to, you know, basically in kind. And he says that there is the closest thing that we've had to an honest exchange so far. Which is probably true. And she's just appalled. She's like, oh my God, you cut my finger off. But
Right.
then she's
Yeah.
probably appalled at herself, like, oh my God, I bit this dude's finger off. She's like,
And he
oh,
didn't even seem to
what's
react at
becoming of
all.
me? You know,
Like
she's
he
probably
didn't.
she's probably
Yeah.
shocked at herself. She can't believe this guy cut her finger off. She's just like, what is happening to me? And who knows, maybe those words that Wilsig told her is like, you may not like what you become,
Right.
to survive, because
Yeah.
it's
I mean, he's
happening.
right.
She's changing to survive. And she, knowing the little Lucy that we saw back in the vault, who's so happy-go-lucky, she might not like this Lucy. But she, this is who she has to be, because
Yeah. It
we all
wasn't so
know.
okie dokie there.
Right. Well, you notice her okie dokies change over time. It's,
Yeah. A little bit.
okie
Yeah.
dokie, okie dokie. So that I thought was a really cool scene. It was hello, there you are, my little killer. That was very
Mhm.
cool. And so now we're back at 33, and we've got
Yeah.
some
And
Buddy Holly.
I love Buddy Holly.
This
Like,
scene
we
was
actually
funny,
have a
cringy,
yeah.
little weird, a little. So we see Chet having lunch by himself, very proper, very, I don't know, neat bachelor dude. I don't know. And then Stephanie comes by with a box of Bert's things. She asks how Chet's doing. And of course, Chet talks about himself. Like, she's just been widowed. She's pregnant. And he's
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
well,
she asked, and he's like, "Well,
I
yeah."
just lost Lucy, and then I lost my job as gatekeeper. And then he thinks,
Which, yeah,
then he goes, oh, and how are you with losing your father of your unborn child thing?
yeah, which is a really weird way of putting that.
That's what
Like,
I thought. And so
like, yeah,
she's
she
like,
lost her husband,
right,
but not it's not just her baby daddy.
right. But it was like he talked about himself first. And then he's like,
Yeah, I
oh,
mean,
by the way, how are you? And she's like, oh,
she's like,
I'm
same.
okay. Yeah, same. That was it. It was like so flippant. And then she's like, well, I was going through Bert's things and I thought you might like them. And included is a picture of Bert, like
Yeah,
a big, huge
there's a
portrait of
drawing
Bert.
of him. Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, you think that would be something you would keep? Like, were they even friends? I mean, you don't see them interact
I
at all
don't
before Bert
know.
dies.
Yeah, it was all really strange.
Creepy. So he picks his shoe out of the box that looks like it would probably be too small for him anyway, because we remember Bert as being a very diminutive dude. And Chet's kind of he's tall and he's not super beefy, but he's not a skinny, lanky guy either.
No,
But he holds up this shoe and he's like, he always had such nice shoes. And she's like, oh, he was all about his shoe care. He could go on and on and on and on until everyone left the room. I
which
loved
I could
him
see that.
so. And it's like, she really didn't love him. She's just, it's an act, and I get it, because they only had so many people to choose from and she wanted a family and she was probably like, yeah, you're good enough. And, I guess there was no passion there. It was just like, yeah, you're good enough to,
Yeah,
be partnered with and, repopulate America.
you have to wonder if there was cousin stuff there.
But he wasn't a cousin. So, because we know that cousin
I'm,
stuff is not a sustainable sexual activity. So she wouldn't have married him if it was. But, you know, remember that she was the one who, when the raider showed up that Lucy was going to marry, that she was like lucky because
true.
he
That
was
is
obviously better looking than Bert was. So then she pulls out Bert's sweater and scarf and she puts them on Chet. She's like, just try these on. And she puts them on him, which they're too small for Chet. They're like straining at the shoulders and everything. And she's like, oh, Bert. Oh, Bert. And then hugs him and then they start kissing and she keeps calling him Bert. And he's like, yes, Yes, I'm
Can I
Bert.
take the sweater up? No,
Oh,
no,
no,
keep it
no,
on.
keep the sweater on. And she keeps calling him Bert. Yes,
He's
I'm
like, yeah,
Bert.
I'm
I'm
Bert.
Bert. Which is creepy. I get role playing, but don't role play your girlfriend's dead husband. Blech. No. Um, very
What?
cringy when he starts fondling her
It's
and
just
makes.
weird. I mean, because yeah, maybe it had just. I mean, because she was obviously pregnant. Maybe it had just been a while. But to
I don't
role
know. I mean,
play the
probably
guy,
I'm guessing that she only was with Bert long enough to get what she wanted, and then once she got what she wanted, that was it. But I'm sure she still has drive. She just didn't
yeah,
feel anything for Bert, although she loved him so.
it's just all
And
very
Chet is
strange.
obviously better looking. So, but she couldn't probably make a move on Chet because he was in love with Lucy and Lucy was her best friend and
Yeah,
whatever. But I don't know that she was related to Chet. So, I mean, he seems younger. So I don't know why she couldn't have been paired
yeah. I
with
mean,
him.
you're
I
probably
don't
right.
know. I don't know why they couldn't have been
Uh,
paired together. Questions will never get answered, I'm sure.
yeah, maybe Bert was from. Well, no, we
No,
couldn't
Bert's
never. Yeah,
from 33.
but
And we
Steph
find out later
wasn't.
that Stuff is from 31.
Yeah, so maybe
But you know
that
what?
was
That's
another.
probably it. She probably got
Yeah,
paired with Bert and
it
didn't
was
even
probably another
know that would have been it.
triannual
She came from
exchange.
31 to get
Yeah,
paired with Bert, never even knew Chet then. So that's probably it. Like she'd never even met anybody before she came out. I bet that's
right.
it. And
Makes sense.
she didn't hit the lottery with Bert.
Which is another reason why she said Lucy was lucky.
Yes. Because her vault lottery was not the winning ticket.
Right.
So as we find out that the comment that Chet makes about her I don't want to say it. It's gross. It's cringy.
There, yeah,
Um
there was some exploration going on.
yeah. And anyway, so we find out that the reason she's in the state she's in is because oop, her water broke.
Hmm. All
Yeah.
over the place.
All over his floor. So Stephanie's gonna have her baby. Yay. We're gonna have a little vault dweller. So thankfully, we leave that scene and we go back to the ghoul, which is much more interesting and less cringy. And he takes Lucy to the super duper mart that way back when we were being teased about the show, we
Hmm.
watched the crews building this super duper mart out of in a like decrepit old, I don't remember if it used to be an old supermarket or a Toys R Us or I don't know, something in New York.
I don't remember.
It was on a
Yeah.
busy street corner and everybody got to watch it become a super duper mart. And they trucked in loads of sand to dump in the parking lot and brought in these old decrepit cars to dump in the parking lot and made this set. And it was cool.
Hmm.
So they made this super duper mart. So we finally get to see it in the show. And he brings Lucy here. And see now when we were doing the speculation episode, I thought he lived here. And there's a reason for
Right.
that.
Yeah, I remember that. Because yeah,
There was a
you.
reason, there is a reason for that. And
Hmm.
I understand like why I thought that, but it turns out he does not live here. He doesn't even probably know what goes on here. He just knows that he brings people here and he
Yep.
gets his drug.
Vials. Yeah.
Yeah. The vials that he needs. So he pushes the little intercom and he tells them that he wants to trade for vials, that he has one intact female. And he looks at her
Mint
hand and says,
condition. Yeah.
fairly
Mint condition.
intact.
Near mint.
Near mint. Yeah, a mint
Yeah.
female, near mint. And you hear a voice on the other side say, well, inspection required, send her in.
Yeah.
And so he sends Lucy in and then proceeds to pass out on the ground
Yeah.
because
Which
he's about done. And he
is that
stays
from
there the
the
entire
lack
time.
of drugs, or if is that from his finger? We're not really quite sure,
I
but
doubt it's from his finger. Because he's been declining since he's not had his dose. So I
yeah,
would
he had
say it's
that coughing
because he
fit.
needs his drugs. And he's not had anything in a while. Not
Yeah,
since
well,
he left not
that's
since he
true.
left
Yeah,
Wilzig's body, I think.
based on what happens when. Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So she goes inside and you hear happy shopping music.
Hmm.
And you can see that she's like in this playland area. And then, she proceeds and she's met by a Mr. Handy. And she's like, fudge. And he goes, nope, no fudge.
She's still clinging to that innocent
Oh, yeah.
Voltwaller
She's
thing.
not going to. I mean, up until now, she's like never sworn. She's never said anything
No.
bad. So she's like, oh, because he's shocked her. He's surprised her. And, so he's talking to her and and he sees that, oh, well, it seems to me you're missing a finger. Well, we're going to have
Yeah.
to fix that up. And she's like,
What?
okay. She's like, he's going to take care of me. Somebody's actually going to be
Yeah.
nice to me for a change. And she was so worried about coming in here. And she's like, oh, maybe this will work
You're
out.
actually gonna, treat me
So
well and patch me
he
up.
apologizes for the mess. He says, time just flies by, especially since my temporal sensors took a hit during the Great War. That must have been about a week ago.
So I was like, wait.
Or 219 years.
Right.
And so he takes her into this like little medical area, tells her, just sit on that gurney. And then he pulls open a drawer of fingers and thumbs and
He
whatnot.
just happens to have them laying around.
They just happen to be in the drawer. And he's like, too withered, too big. I seem to have the right one right here. And he proceeds to attach it with his laser onto her hand, which is icky. I mean, it's neat.
I guess the ghoul didn't hang on to the one he cut off.
No, he did.
It,
He hung on to it for himself.
So
I don't know what
I guess he
happened to
just
his that she
keeps
bit
it
off.
as a trophy, but yeah.
I don't know what happened to the one she bit off. But
Yeah, I think she spit that one out,
but I don't know why he just didn't pick it up and go, that's my finger. Because he
yeah,
kept hers.
He didn't.
He kept hers.
'cause it would have been nice had he given it to her. Just like, here, keep this as a reminder.
That's the key. It would have been nice.
Yeah,
He was not in the mood to be nice.
No, he just had his own bitten off.
And he may have kept it as a trophy. You never know. So the finger that the Mr. Handy puts on her is like gray and dead.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts it on and you can tell it does not match. So now she has a gray finger to go with the rest of her body. And she's moving it. She's able to move it and use it. And she's like, oh, that feels nice. I would have been a little like, oh my God, it's dead, but
yeah.
hey.
But I mean, she's able to
probably
maybe
beyond that now.
Once the blood gets flowing a bit, maybe it'll get some.
No, it stays gray.
Yeah,
you didn't notice?
I didn't pay attention to it.
Pay attention in further episodes. It stays gray. It stays gray. Yeah, well, it is not coming back. So then she starts blabbering about, well, this giant fish ate my head, and then this person, and blah, 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 blah. So she keeps going on about what a bad day she's had. And he's just ignoring her. And he says, do you have a choice in bandages? Would you like cotton or did you want synthetic? And she's like, you have real cotton?
And he's like, of course.
Don't you? And she's just like, oh my gosh. And she just keeps, then she's like, well, this creature outside brought me here. And I thought he was bringing me here to be a sex slave. And he's like, don't be silly.
That's disgusting.
I'm merely going to harvest your organs. She's like, what?
And then, it gets tranked in the stomach.
Yep.
So,
which is hilarious. Oh, yeah. She had told him he made her drink what she sure was animal pee, which I thought was hilarious. And then, so he's just going to harvest her organs and then he tranks her. And then end scene, which was, she falls back on the gurney. And then you're like, oh, crap, what's going to happen? So we go back to Norm. Clever Norm. And he comes into the jail cell area with the Jell-O mold cake, these famous Jell-O mold cakes. Oh my goodness. And I think this is like leftovers from Lucy's wedding. I mean, how long ago was that?
Could be, yeah.
A couple weeks, hasn't it? Or a week? Or I don't know. It's been like that. I don't know how long it's been. We don't know. Time is relative here.
Yeah, they don't give you a time frame for
the only thing we do get a time frame at some point, but it's later than she says 2 weeks, but that's later. So I don't know where we are right now. But Norm brings in the Jell-O cake and he's bringing it in for the prisoners. And the guard's like, oh my gosh, they get Jello cake? And he's like, yeah, I know. He goes, doesn't seem right, but that's what I was told. And then he says, but if you want, why don't you just take it? Like, nobody will know. So he gets rid of the guard by making her, because she's like, oh, I'm going to go put this in my fridge. So this is how he gets rid of the guard that's on duty, is by getting her to take the Jello mold back to her room. So I guess because he wanted to be alone with the prisoner. So he goes to the prisoner and, the prisoner's like, what are you looking at? And he's like, well, I don't know. I'm something about just, just a murder, and what did
Murder
you
in a
do
cage
to
or
the
something.
innocent people of Vault 32 and what you did to us? And the raider says, I don't know what the people of Vault 32 were up to, but they were anything but innocent.
Right.
And then he says, did he tell him at that time that they were already dead?
No.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't think he did.
Didn't.
He just said, I don't know what they were up to, but they're anything but innocent. And so Norm is now like, so he goes running off to his dad's office, the overseer's office, to check the Vault 32 records, but he finds out that access is denied. And of course, this makes one curiouser and curiouser.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes down to Chet's room, which, Chet's his best friend, and he's thinking, so he goes down there and, Stephanie's in the background screaming because she's having a baby. And he says, you want to get out of here? Chet's
yes,
like,
please.
yes. So they go.
He didn't even think to ask.
No, he didn't even say, like, where are we going?
There. Like,
yeah, I mean, if he had, he probably would have said,
what's she doing here? He's
right.
just like, let's get out of here.
Yeah, Norm doesn't say, like, what's going on here? Like, what are you doing? And why is she in your house? He doesn't even ask that. And Norm doesn't say, or Chet doesn't say, where are we going? They're all just we're leaving.
Let's go.
So they go together. They go to Vault 32 and they clear rubble so that they can get in. Because remember, Moldaver had a bomb planted at the entrance of 32. And when she set it off, it basically was supposed to, like, cave in the entrance. But apparently not so bad that it was kind of a weak bomb. I don't even know if it would have killed those people, to be honest. Well,
I mean, outdoor vault doors are designed.
They still work. This was the internal door.
Yeah. So you have to wonder, like, maybe the internal ones are they as strong as ones to the
and that's
surface?
true. Maybe not, because why would they need to be that strong? And I don't even know why they had internal doors anyway, except you find out later.
To separate the different,
So why?
I mean, why isn't it one big vault, and why do they separate them?
Yeah.
We do kind of find out later, but still, it's like.
But it's weird. So they're clearing the rubble, and now Chet starts to ask questions. They're like, oh, I don't know if we should be doing this. Why did I come? Right. I don't think it's right. This is wrong. And Norm's like, nope, we got to see this through now. We got to do this. So they go into the vault and they see the dead crops. And Norm's like, see?
Yep.
This has been going on for a long time. This is not new.
Yeah.
This happened a long time ago. And so he's like, whatever happened here happened. And so they start looking around. They go upstairs. They start finding bodies. They're seeing them in some not natural positions. And Norm checks a pit boy on one of the bodies and finds out that the last bio sign was 2 years ago.
Yeah, which is very telling as well, because I mean the Raiders came from Vault 32, right?
Right. They came through Vault 32.
Through Vault 32, so I guess that those didn't count as biosignals, but I guess that means that
this was the pit boy on the dead guy's arm.
The people have been dead for 2 years. So.
Yeah, so it was the pit boy on the guy's arm. So the pit boy had read no biosigns for 2 years.
Biosignal from the person who's wearing it, not anybody else.
Right. And considering that they do this exchange like every 3 years, that's why they had no idea that there was nobody living in this vault for the last 2 years.
Since,
Yeah. And so they start going through different rooms, and there's a TV left playing in one of the rooms with somebody sitting in front of it with his knife in a toaster. which is
Hmm.
how he offed himself, I guess. And the TV is playing a documentary of sorts, I guess, about how mice, when they're overpopulated, they'll start eating each other.
Yeah, which is kind of telling as to what was going on.
Like life in a vault, like when you're overpopulated.
Yeah,
So was this the experiment of this vault, maybe? Like overpopulation? Like what happens when they're overpopulated? I
it
don't
could be
know.
because there was another vault that had that. Trying to remember which one it was, where the the amount of people in the vault was twice as many as
As it was
capacity.
built for, right.
I can't remember
So
which vault number that was,
but
but
this one didn't exist before, so it's hard to say. And I don't
right.
know if that was the deal or if they were just maybe they found out about the experiments. I don't know. Because
Well,
I
yeah,
thought
because
these
there
were
was a
supposed to be
sign.
control vaults.
There was a sign on there. There was a note on the wall written in blood saying, "We know the
We
truth."
know the truth. Yeah, they keep seeing these messages. We know the truth and down with management and stuff
Yeah,
like that. They keep seeing these things. And they find bodies in more death poses. And Chet notices that, he's like, if the Raiders didn't kill them, then who did? He says it
yeah.
looks like these two strangled
Strangled
each
each
other
other. Yeah.
with their hands.
Wasn't there one that was missing a head?
There was all kinds of stuff.
I thought there was a body that
There
was
was
missing a
all
head.
kinds of stuff. And this place was a mess. Blood on the walls, blood on
Hmm.
the windows, bodies piled up everywhere, and just a mess. A mess. So they're finding these things, they're creeping around the vault, they're looking, they're investigating, and this is where we leave them. So we go back to Snip Snip.
Which we
Snip
do
Snip
find
is
out
the
that's what
name
his name
of the
is.
Mr. Handy that has tranked Lucy. And we see him pushing Lucy on a gurney through the freezer section of the store. You pass a dairy sign first, which is really hilarious. And then, he's going through the freezer section and she's in and out from the tranquilizer. She sees her mom. She sees like visions of her mom from her childhood.
Yeah. So I was kind
And
of
she
curious
hears her
about that.
mom call her. And we see in the freezer section that she's going through, there are people in the individual freezer units,
Both
like
humans
cells,
and ghouls.
which I'm
Yeah.
wondering, like, how do they breathe? But whatever. Somehow they're breathing. So they're being held prisoner in these freezer units. And so Snip Snip presents Lucy to two guys on the couch who I can't help but think of Beavis and Butthead because they're like stoned out of their
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
And they're
Dude,
watching TV and
what is that
eating.
over
And
there?
yeah, it's like apparently they're the drug lords, which is funny.
I don't know. Why don't you go check, butthead?
Yeah, considering that they're stoned out of their, like, they're obviously testing too much of their own product or their brains are just rotted right out. And
Yeah, a little from column A, a little from column B.
so he says, we have this girl. And they're like, well, what are they asking? And so he tells them what the ghoul wants. And they're like, yeah, that works for us, but do her soon so we can get her on the next shipment.
Yep.
And so Snip Snip says, very good. And he takes her to the next room and she's pleading with him. She's like, please, no, I need my organs. Don't take my organs. And he fires up the saw and he says, it won't hurt a bit. So
Right.
she starts fighting with him and she manages to kind of knock him off course enough that his saw cuts her restraint. And so she
Smart.
escapes and she's brilliant. She grabs a
Mhm.
defibrillator and she holds it against his saw and she electrocutes poor Snip Snip. And he can no longer, he shorts out and collapses and he can no longer hurt her. So she looks around and you see her gaze land on an Abraxo cleaner in a brown jug, which we've never seen a Abraxo cleaner in a brown jug, but sure,
No,
why
we've
not?
always seen it in powder form.
Right, we've
Yeah.
always seen it in a box, but sure, why not? It works. So now we go back to the guys sitting on the couch, and she's got Snip Snip as a hostage. And she's like, let me go, or the robot gets it. And they're like,
dude, it's an appliance like any
yeah,
other.
they're like, it's like holding the air conditioning hostage. And then they get into they get into a conversation
Of
about,
course,
well,
snip,
it'd
snip.
be kind of cool to have some air conditioning, So they're obviously like, so
Oh,
she's like, I got to switch to plan B. So she's like, okay, Well, his little syringes are loaded with Abraxo. Snip, snip. Tell him what happens when you get hit with Abraxo. So he explains that it's poison. And they're like, okay, you can go.
Yeah.
And she says, I want you to
Let them
free
go
all these
first.
people.
Mm-hmm.
So they hit a button and a lot of people leave. And this one guy's like, "Phew," on the way out the door. But, she looks around and she says, well, those people too, all the people. And
Not
he's
understanding what it's like when they're fully feral.
but she didn't know that. She
No,
didn't know
she
that the
didn't at
other
this point. But
section
this
was
is how she
feral people.
finds out. Yeah.
And she's insists that, they release these others. And they're like, lady, you don't get it. Like, you don't want to let them out. And so she shoots a syringe at the couch and they watch the couch get eaten up by Brexo. And they're like, okay. So they go ahead and release the others. And it takes them a minute to come out. But they do come out. And when they do, you find out why she should not have freed them. They're feral. And so now we have the fight between the ferals and the other three, basically. So they run after the two guys and they end up dying because I don't think they're in the right headspace to be able to sustain a fight with some feral ghouls.
We should run.
They should have just run, yeah, but no, they're too dumb. So Lucy ends up killing most of the ferals. I mean, one of the ferals was dumb enough they attacked the robot, and the robot's like, whatever.
And it's a lovely day, isn't it?
It's a lovely day. So one ghoul is left, and it's this poor woman that Lucy had noticed earlier. She was sitting in the freezer, and she kept saying, "My name is Margaret. My name is Margaret."
Yeah.
Now, if that didn't tell her something there, I don't know. Like, did you learn nothing today?
Right, because you see, like,
you
that's
just
how
saw this.
Roger was trying to stay sane.
Right. And now this woman's like, my name is Margaret. My name is Margaret. So she starts slowly approaching Lucy. And Lucy, of course, is trying to talk her down. She's like, yes, your name is Margaret. You can beat this. Yes, you're going to be okay. And of course, the woman's like going between feral, Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it gets to the point where she starts to attack Lucy and Lucy has to kill her. And she does not like it at all. So she's sitting there feeling very defeated, looking around. And of course, Snip Snip says, can I help you have a better day? And she's like, no, thank you. It's just one of those things,
Yeah.
And so, she's just, you can tell she's just done.
So
we already know all the crap that's happened that day. And she thought she was doing something good. And it turns out that all these people had to be killed, but they weren't people anymore.
No.
But she doesn't recognize this yet. I mean, I think she's coming to terms with it, but
it's starting to click. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's starting to come to terms with it, but it took her a while. And, it's like she wanted to help poor Margaret, but she couldn't. Like, there was no help for poor Margaret. And that's what she hates. She really hates the fact that she can't help people. And that's what she wanted to do, but she can't help. So, okay.
And her whole thing is like, I'm going to make the world a better place.
Because that's the vault tech.
Yeah.
That was their goal, was to come out of the ground.
I am a vault dweller, and it's my job to make the world better.
Because that's what she told Ma June, was that, we're going to come out and fix the world. And Ma June's like, whoa, how are you going to do that? And so she's starting to see that
you're a real vault dweller.
This is not what we were told. This is not what we were told that our goal was or what we were going to do. So we cut back. Actually, let's take a break right here.
Okay.
Because it's probably a good spot to take a break. So let's take
We're
a quick
almost
break.
Done too, so.
And we'll be back.
Yes.
All right.
This is 3 Count Thoughts. You can catch a new episode every Monday where we discuss a moment in wrestling history and the week's highlights and hell knows in professional wrestling. Are you ready? Ring the bell.
Hey, welcome back. We're doing episode 4, and we're going to cut back to Chet and Norm as they continued through the Vault 32, and they go to the Overseer's office.
Yep, they find the dead overseer.
The dead Overseer, what was that? Did he shoot himself? Or I don't know. He was like tied to his chair.
Something like that. And yeah, and their hair was sticking up, which
I was having a hard time figuring out like how his death was. Like, it didn't, like, if he must have been killed, because we see a lot of dwellers that are hanging in the hallway.
Mhm.
And then there's a bunch, and then he's tied in his chair, and on the wall it says death to management.
Somehow there was a revolt or something, right? I want to say that there was a riot, kind of like
there was something going on.
Yeah. So
but
they
I mean,
probably killed the overseer first.
Between the murders and the suicides, I mean, everybody in this vault is dead. And I don't know if like maybe the revolt happened and all the rioting, and maybe with all the murders and everything, like maybe all the people that were left suicided. I don't know.
The overseer had to have either been killed first or last. Probably last. Like they marched their way through the vault.
I would say maybe because they were trying to get into another vault.
Yeah.
Which they find. But
so maybe they thought the overseer
checks
would
the
help
computer.
Them. Yeah.
Because Chet's
somebody had to let the Raiders in, yeah.
Right. Chet's working theory is these people were plumb crazy, and they had to have let the Raiders in, which he's still going off the fact that there was somebody there to let the Raiders in when we already know that Norm checked the Pit Boy and that these people haven't been alive for 2 years.
And Norm was the one who got blamed for it, even though he knows it, like somebody else had to have let them in the first place.
Well, no, Norm wasn't. He wasn't blamed for that.
Well, he was punished for the Raiders getting in, right?
No.
Norm and Chet were.
No, not for the Raiders getting in. No, they were blamed for something else. But no, not for the Raiders getting in for the wedding. That wasn't their fault. Well, nobody blamed that on them.
Betty had said they had
what they're looking at is how did the Raiders get into 32 before they came over for the wedding? Like nobody. They were saying that somebody in 32 had to let them in, is what the working theory is. And that's why Chet believes this. But Norm's like, no, I don't think so, because these people haven't been alive. So he checks the overseer's computer, and Chet says, well, it had to have been somebody who let him in. And Norm says, no, I don't think so. I think that the door was open from the outside. Right. And Chet says, no, you have to have a pit boy for that.
Yeah.
And Norm says they did.
Had one. Yeah.
And he says, well, who's Pit Boy? And he says, my mom. So he finds in the computer that the outside door was opened by his mother's Pit Boy.
So that means that, what's her name? Lee Moldaver's Pit Boy was Rose's.
Yeah. That Lee Moldaver has Rose McLean's Pit Boy somehow, and that she used it to open the vault so that the Raiders could get in. And Norm verified that on the overseer's terminal, which is working. This is important to note. It is working. Okay, because later on, this is an important thing. The overseer's terminal in Vault 32 is in working order, and you can retrieve information on it. Even though those records that he's looking at, he could not see from Vault 33 because the access was denied. So, but he can see it at the vault. And it is a working terminal. So he sees this, he learns this. So we go back to the Super Duper Mart, and Lucy comes out, and now we see that she's more battle hardened. So apparently she's done a little looting now. Smart girl, finally figuring this out. She finds some armor. She's got like a little like arm, whatever thing. She's got a little bit of armor.
Like Rambo a bit.
Little Rambo'd up. Yeah. So she's got a little bit of armor on, and she comes out. You know, she just has this tougher look. Like you can tell, like more battle hardened look about her. And the ghoul's still on the ground next to the intercom. He has not moved. And she says to him, so if you don't get these vials, then you'll turn feral.
Yeah.
And he kind of nods. And she now has a 10 mil that she has gotten from somebody in there. And she's kind of looking at it, kind of like he sees it. She's got it. She's flashing it and she's contemplating and she says, I may end up looking like you, but I'm never going to be like you. And she lays down the vials next to him. And she says, what was it she said?
Go home, motherfucker.
Golden rule, motherfucker.
Golden rule, motherfucker. Yeah,
and then she strides
it's not fudge anymore.
And she strides confidently out of the parking lot. Yeah, she's not fudging anymore. So now we see the ghoul stumble into the Super Duper Mart. And this is where I thought that he lived there because he's basically making it his now. But he stumbles into the Super Duper Mart and he's using the vial that he needed. So he's starting to feel better. And he scopes out what's gone on there and he sees this stash that these guys had. And he knows that like he's in heaven. And he goes on a binge. He's like,
he's taking all that file.
All kinds of drugs and alcohol, and he's having a ball, and he's talking to the dead bodies. Hey, I would have loved to save some for y'all, but you were not invited to this party. And he sees the TV, and he sees a holotape over there, and he picks it up, and lo and behold, it's his movie.
It's his movie, yeah.
It's the movie he was shooting when we first see his backstory. What, episode 2?
2, something like that, yeah.
When we see him where he has the dilemma of, do I have to kill him? Mm-hmm. Back then, where he finds out that they're taking a direction shift on his character. So he pops the tape in and he sits down to watch it, and you can see him miming the movements. He remembers his lines, he remembers everything. And in the movie, the clip that plays, sure enough, he kills the guy and says something about you commie son of a bitch or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's how that movie, that's how that scene went, even though we saw before that that's not how he wanted to play it.
Before he killed him, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want to play it that way, but that's what we got. And so
and we're listening to the Andrews sisters while this is going on, which is also very Fallout.
Yeah, I can dream, can't I?
Yeah.
That was really good. And so that scene ended, and we see a pan out of a drive-in and the outside of Vault 33. So yeah, we were closer than we thought. So the cool things about this episode, and it's called The Ghouls because basically we dealt with a lot of ghouls in this episode.
Yeah.
And we learned a lot. We got the information that, yes, these ghouls need this vial of whatever this is.
Yeah. And see, that's something
to keep from going feral.
I never really but if that's the case, why haven't we seen this drug before?
Yeah, I have no idea what this is. So I'm thinking back on all the chems and serums and everything that we have in all the Fallouts. And I have no idea what they're using to stay sane and not go feral. So I don't know what this is. And it's interesting. Is this like a new thing being introduced to lore? That there is a drug, and was it developed pre-war? Surely not, because we didn't know what ghouls were. Yeah, but didn't we know what ghouls were? Because think back to Fallout 4, Eddie Winters ghoulified himself.
Yeah, he's another post
to survive the war.
Which,
but he doesn't have the drug to keep himself from going feral. No. How did he know he wouldn't go feral?
And
because the researcher in Fallout 4 who was studying making herself, well, I don't know if she really knew she was going to make herself a ghoul, but she was titrating the radiation to see if she could survive radiation, whatever. Right. She ended up going feral. Because we find her in a house. And she's feral. I think she's a glowing one, isn't she?
I can't remember. And yeah, that was another thing that I speculated on, because it's not specifically how much radiation you get, because we do see non-feral glowing ones like Jason Bright in New Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So it like I said, it's one of those situations where they kind of strongly hint at this, but they never come out and say it. And there's a lot of questions still remaining. Like, okay, what determines whether or not somebody loses their mind? Is it something like how strong their minds are, like their willpower
Right.
is, or if it is this drug, and if it is this drug, why have we never seen it before? And is it only specific to this region?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm guessing that it has to be something that maybe somebody stumbled across post-war,
And we still don't even
and
really know what it
but
is.
we don't know what it is, and maybe we'll find out during flashbacks during episode 2. Like maybe we'll figure out like who came up with this and how, or like how they developed it, and then maybe like how the ghoul started taking it,
Yeah.
or why he started taking it, and like, because we need an answer, and this is like one of the biggest questions, because
Yeah,
we know
we've
that
always
there's,
speculated on this, like,
yeah, and I mean,
forever.
we know in all the Fallout games, like it's kind of like hit or miss on whether you go feral or not. And all the ghouls, like, because we see, I can't remember his name, the guy at the crater who's convinced he's going to go feral, so he keeps trying to kill himself, but he never dies. Lucky Lou.
Oh yeah.
And like he keeps trying to kill himself, but he's lucky, and so it just never works out. And he doesn't die. He can't die. Like we know that ghouls can die, but in his case, like something always goes wrong, and he just like he tries to shoot himself, and like the gun doesn't go off, or whatever. So he
Right.
just can't manage to manage to do it, because he's so afraid that he's going to go feral and that his friends are going to have to either deal with him or he's going to hurt them, that he keeps trying to off himself, and he can't do it because he's too lucky that his plans never fall through.
Which is kind of like what Zach was saying about Twig.
Right. Yeah,
So,
you just, some people just have that luck. What is it, like that perk in like serendipity or something? I can't remember, where it's
yeah.
like you're just so lucky, or and so, and it's a good thing in the game that Lou is still around, because we need him to run.
Hmm.
He's essential to help you get into Vault 79 if you're doing it with the Raiders. And so it's a good thing he's still around. And we know that he has friends who care about him that don't care if he goes feral, or like they're convinced he's not going to, because it's been this long, you're not going to now.
Right.
But we also know from the fact that this guy, Roger, it was 28 years
Hmm.
before he went feral. But he had been
Yeah.
using the vials to keep himself from going feral, but he just ran out. So that's interesting.
Well, and yeah, you have to wonder just how long the ghoul has been taking this as well, because he
Uh-huh.
said that he's always been good at making money, so he must have known about this whole thing for who knows how long.
And been buying it for a long time.
Yeah.
Or trading for it. Like we see, he knew that the Super Duper Mart, he could make a trade
Which is
and
where
get
his
some.
bounty hunter, um,
Uh-huh.
his
Right.
profession comes into play.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, because I don't know. I mean, I would say that the bounty hunting, he would get the money for that and then just go buy it. I would say
Yeah,
this is like his, I'm desperate, so I'm just gonna like kidnap somebody and trade them for
yeah.
vials.
I don't have any more. So,
Yeah.
but this was
Yeah.
his
I mean, he's
supplier.
kind of lost him at this point in time, because you get to the point where you're just going to do whatever you have to do to survive. And if it
But
means, bringing a raider in and trading them in for body parts, like I don't know if he knew what they did there. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
this
All
also
he knew is
means,
he could get
though,
vials for bodies.
this also means that this particular supplier is no longer in business.
True.
So
But he
we'll
has
see what
their whole
happens.
stash. So as
Yeah, he's
long
got
as
the whole
that lasts,
stash,
he's
but
good. But where were they getting it? So that's what he probably needs to know.
we'll see what happens in season 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, like I was saying, this is, there's a lot in this episode, and there's a reason why it stood out in my mind even from the first time I watched it, because there's so much, and I'm a lore junkie, obviously,
Hmm.
so they give you a lot, but at the same time, do they really?
Well, they give you a lot to question.
Yeah,
It's like they give you an answer, but that just leads you to like four more
it's kind of
questions.
like watching Lost.
Yeah. It is a lot. Well, same thing with Westworld. It was the same
Yeah.
thing with Westworld. You saw something and you were like, but what about,
Hmm.
XYZ? So, I mean, it's obviously a Nolan thing. And, but, and it's just like the same thing with Vault 32. I mean, what happened there? Why? Okay, so somebody got smart and figured out what was going on with management. A lot like what Norm's doing right now, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
just because
exactly.
they found out, then what? They went to everybody and spilled the beans and everybody got mad and started a riot. Is that what happened? So Norm could do that, but he hasn't. And even if he does, because he did make that comment at the meeting, nobody seemed to get angry and jump to his side. Is that just because of who he is? Like they're just like, oh, it's just Norm. Like they accept him, but they know he's a little goofy or a little different.
Yeah.
So maybe the person in Vault 32 was a little more, like their opinion was a little more respected. So that whistleblower was maybe
Which is why she's like, "Hey, cool it," for
probably just
everybody's
like,
sake.
obviously Betty knows what happened in Vault 32, which is weird. Okay, so if Betty knew what happened in Vault 32, and obviously Hank would have had to know what happened in 32, why were they okay with doing an exchange with 32? So they maybe they didn't know, but it seems
I don't
strange how
think.
they
Well,
wouldn't have known
yeah, you would think at
that like
least
nobody
Betty
was
and
there.
I'm trying to remember, was Woody in on the whole thing? Because I know Betty was.
No, I don't think Woody knew anything.
And Steph obviously would have had some clue as well.
Well, I don't
So
know if
that is a
Steph
good
would have known or
question.
not, but I mean, I don't know if
Yeah,
Steph
because
would
she
have
would have
known or not.
been 3 years ago. But at least Betty should have
She,
known because she
I
was
get
an
that Steph was
overseer at one point,
probably
wasn't
the
she?
last trade. You know, she may
Yeah.
have been the last trade to come out of 31 to, and so maybe they hadn't even talked to 32 in 6 years, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like if she had been in the vault longer than 3 years, they would have had more kids by now, which is strange that she even would have, unless Vault 31 was on a different rotation for their 3 year trade. That's a possibility. So, another
Yeah.
question. So, maybe Vault 31 is kicking out people every 3 years but wouldn't they wonder why 31 would give them people to marry, but like they would never go to 31 to
Yeah, because
marry?
it just seems like people are just trickling down from 31 and 32. Um,
Well, I mean, I would, yeah, I guess nobody really goes to 32. I mean, we don't really know that for certain, but we do know that people are coming out of 31, and we know that this time 32 is coming to 33. We don't
yeah.
know if nobody has ever gone to 32. I don't know that, but I'm
But
pretty sure
again,
that nobody goes to 31.
you would think Betty would at least have some clue though, because I want to say she was a former overseer.
She was, and she should know what's going on. And then
Yeah.
Hank would have known. That's why I find that it's interesting that they didn't know that there was nobody in 32 when they set up the exchange.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that they did not know, which I mean, how long was Moldaver in that vault waiting for somebody to reach out?
That's the thing. We don't
And if
really
that was the thing,
know
if she was in that vault waiting for somebody to reach out all that time,
because
why
she
the
spent a
heck
lot of
were they
time in
living
the
with all the dead bodies? Ugh.
yeah. Well, and
Unless they just pop in once in a while to check the
we find
computer.
out later what her role is in all this.
Yeah,
Because
for
we do
sure.
get
But
clues because Hank and Moldaver know each other. But what was she doing with the Raiders? And because I mean we find out what other faction she's a part of. So
well,
I
I
don't
think the
know.
Raiders were her tool, maybe.
Again, I'm gonna have to watch the rest of this season with
Yeah, I mean,
now having this prior knowledge.
I've already seen all the episodes probably a couple times, but I've been rewatching before the show just so that they're fresh
Yeah.
in my mind before we talk about them.
I haven't. I've only watched through completely once, so I've kind of been watching this as we're going along. So you're basically getting my natural reaction.
Right. That's what I've been doing. And I'm trying not to like, talk too far ahead, but
Yeah.
so I've been watching with my husband who doesn't know a lot about Fallout, and we just got through episode 7. And he's had some good questions. And but he thinks the show's too squishy. which is funny coming from him because he plays a lot of video games that are kind of like, I think they're squishy, but he just doesn't, I guess he doesn't like squishy in his shows.
Yeah, it's a little bit different when it's animated and not like,
Apparently.
yeah.
So, I mean, I have no problem with it, but that's different. So it's like, it's funny because, if we watch it during dinner and he's like, I can't watch this while I'm eating. I'm like, I have no problem with it. Like, healthcare people are different. We can talk about that stuff. We can watch that stuff while we eat, and it's not a problem.
Yeah.
If we were worried about that kind of stuff, we'd be in trouble.
But yeah, this episode is when I thought that the show really started picking up the pace and revealing more and more.
Yeah.
So definitely was a turning point.
And we see, I think this is like a big turning point for Lucy. You really see a turning point. Like, you see her kind of, we see her starting to fight back with the ghoul when she bites his finger off. But when she comes out of that super duper mart, we know she is a new woman.
Mm-hmm.
She is now like ready to go. She understands more. She has been indoctrinated in the wasteland, and she knows you trust no one. Da 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 da. She's, she is definitely now more of a warrior than a wide-eyed explorer.
Yeah, she's losing a little bit of that naivete.
Yes. So she's definitely had a turning point in this episode, which is about time. I mean, it's episode 4. We're halfway through the season. Yeah. It's time for her to figure things out and get on the ball and stop being, wide-eye Lucy. So it's good that she's there.
Yeah.
It's about time. And now she's finally got herself a decent weapon. No more syringer, no more tranking people. She's out to kill now. She means business now. So,
kill or be killed.
Yep. She's figuring it out now. Like, you just can't be nice anymore. Like, this is not how it works. And and she still, talks about her golden rule. And I think that at her heart, she still, believes in that. But
yeah, otherwise she wouldn't have given him the vials. Because if she really wasn't trying to follow her own like golden rule, she would have just killed him. So you couldn't.
Yeah, she would have let him die. She never would have given him the drug that helps him, especially after everything that he put her through. Making her, not giving her any water their whole trip, and when she begged for water and he just made fun of her and poured it on the ground. It was, everything, where she felt like he was being very demeaning to her and basically made her to the point where she was so desperate that she drank water out of a tire. And when she said that she was sure that it was pee, and she drank it anyway, he basically broke her is, what happened. He pretty much broke her. And I don't know if she's grateful for that or if she doesn't forgive him or what, but she didn't hold it against him. She still gave him his life-saving medicine. And she even laid it down very carefully on the ground. She didn't just like throw it at him. She laid it down very gently next to him, and then she took off. She's like, I don't need you. I don't want you. I'm on my own, and screw all of you. And she took off. So good for her. So we'll be back next week with episode 5, and we'll see where she is as she grows in the wasteland.
Yep.
So let us know what you think, or if you have any thoughts. If you guys know what you think this drug is that the ghoul is using to keep from going feral, let us know, because we're a little stumped. And if you know what happened in Vault, well, don't tell us what happened in Vault 32, because we already know. But
yeah, we find out.
If you think you have any further theories than what we got from the TV show about Vault 32, let us know that. Or anything else about the show. Let us know.
Well, we're all eager to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk for days about it. I think we've mentioned before. So. Anyway, it's been fun, and we'll catch you next episode. Everybody have a good week, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
This podcast is part of the Robots Radio Rocket Club, a program designed to help all podcasts reach their full potential. For information about joining the Robots Radio Rocket Club, check out robotsradio.net.